Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, but if you didn't know that, you know it now, and that's great that you're here. I have got a tremendous show for you today. I know, I say that all the time, but I mean it all the time, but this time I really mean it. I've got a couple of folks that I just met fairly recently, and it turns out that we are, kind of joined at the hip in a really unique way, and so we're gonna talk about all that. And first of all, I want to introduce Matty Hollingsworth and Emily Pearl. How are you guys?
Oh, we are doing wonderful today. We're excited to be here.
So I don't know. What do you want to talk about? I know. Let's talk about things like things that mean stuff like I don't know, death and destruction, but we will talk about our lives and how we live them and how they work for us in a very unique way. That this information that we are going to share with you today needs to get out to more and more people. I'm going to share a quick story with you before we begin. Way back in 2002, I had a friend come to me because we were doing meditation and we were learning about mindfulness and different things. And he said, I want you to go to a metaphysical bookstore, and I recommend everybody do this. And if it's Barnes & Noble, go to their metaphysical department or whatever. And they actually have one now. They didn't used to, but they do now. And he said, go to the metaphysical bookstore and buy the first book that speaks to you. And I said, speaks to me? I'm not exactly sure what that means. And so he said, no, you'll know when you get there. So I took his advice and I went there, and I walked into the store, and the first book I saw, the absolute first book I saw, was called Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton.
Yes.
And I picked up the book and I thumbed through it, and I said, I got to have this because I needed to learn about it. And so I did. And that led me to getting a second book, which was Destiny of Souls, which then eventually led me to interview him and stuff like that. It was a remarkable experience. And these two, I was looking at their information. First of all, they are energetic people, and they've got psychic medium in them, and they've got mediumship and psychic things and all that kind of stuff that I really should probably prepare a little bit better so I can say this the way it's supposed to be said. But in any event, they talk about the demystifying the soul, Akashic Records, intuition education, all of those things that a lot of people are sitting here wondering, I wonder if I'm psychic. I wonder if I've got intuition. I wonder how I access my intuition. Do I have a soul? If I do have a soul, then what does it do all day? And why am I not in touch with it? And how do I find out if I've had past lives or lived before? Or is there a record of that someplace? Well, these two have spent the last 20 years not only traveling around the world, but they have studied this in depth in a lot of different ways. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I promise them that if they don't come back, I'm going to cry. So they're going to have to come back, and you don't want to see an old man cry. So
we'll save everybody the cry, and we'll commit. We'll come back.
Thank you. And welcome you two. You two not only are tag team coaches, you're also tag team relationship people, because you've got a relationship with each other, which is really cool.
That is very true. We've been married for 11 years now and friends for 21. So we've known each other for quite a while.
Since you were 5?
Since I was 23, we've known each other.
No, wait a minute. You're not that. You're not, you're young. You're vibrant. You're certainly not. Anyway,
44.
and so how did I got to ask you because I didn't have a chance to ask you before. How did you guys meet?
You want to take it?
Oh, yeah. Us meeting was one of those time slowing down moments for me personally. Was at a fine dining restaurant in Asheville, North Carolina. This was right before Memorial Day 2004. I was on my very first training shift, and I was at the bar. I was being shown around something, and then I just heard the creak of a door swing open, and time slowed down. And this beautiful young woman comes walking in, ringlets in her dark brown hair, and they're just bouncing in the air, and his voice just went to a very low, almost whisper, and I just watched her walk across the room. And then a partition took over, and then I could just see her hair bouncing a little bit. She was just lively on her feet, and I just looked at the guy. His name was Sam, and I said, "Sam, who's that?" He said, "That's Emily. She works here. You'll get to meet her." And then immediately his voice picked back up, time kicked into normal, and I went right back to what we were doing. Oh, okay, so this is where we keep extra silverware and waters and the folded napkins. It was like as soon as my soul knew I would get to meet her, everything was okay. Time could go back to normal. And speaking of kind of in between lifetimes, there's something that our souls get into, which is a recognition class where we practice meeting important people that we will see in our human lives that we're about to incarnate into. That was definitely one of those recognition class moments I believe that came through for me.
So now, was that your first restaurant job?
No.
No. Yeah.
Not for either of us.
Oh, because I was
14 years. So sorry.
Oh, well, Matty, I was going to say that I'm sure somebody came to you at one point and said, you know, Matty, you should go into the restaurant business. There are lots of pretty girls there.
No one had to come to me. That was obvious that, you know.
and so Emily, how long was it before you took notice of Matty?
Well, it's kind of funny. I always kept a diary like growing up, and I would always like introduce new like important people to my life. And like, so I went back because I was curious because we'd been friends for so long, and I'm like, I wonder like what I wrote about when I first met Matty. And so I went back into all my journals, and it was just like he just like appeared in them, and I started just writing about our adventures together. But like I never introduced him. It was just like he just showed up and was always there. But as far as, I mean, I can't say that I remember this exact day that he's talking about where he was training that day. But I mean, we became really close and good friends like really quickly. And I mean, we started doing all kinds of things together. We both were into Reiki at the moment, and we would like get together and we would practice all of these like new techniques that we learned in books. And we would do things like go to shows together. You know, we had a pretty good crew at that restaurant that we worked at. So we definitely like did a lot of partying together and stuff like that. So it was just kind of like multifaceted as far as like what our experiences were together.
You know, and I got to tell you, because I think it's a magical discussion that people can have. It's like, I interview a lot of people. And when we're first getting together and we're just starting the interview, they don't know me. I don't know them. I have no idea what their belief structure is or who they are. So I look for signs of, you know, if somebody says, well, yeah, I was meditating the other day. It's like, oh, there's a sign. I can open up a little bit more. And then a lot of people are very, very cautious about opening up to their personal beliefs with strangers, especially if they've got personal beliefs that are not necessarily totally mainstream. And so it's fun to watch people eventually open up, because I'm open to almost anything. And but when you are in a situation like that and you meet somebody and they say, well, what do you do in your off time? And you're doing a lot of Reiki, and you go, well, I do this thing, and it's kind of like, you know, I don't know, energy. And the other person says, oh, you mean Reiki? It's kind of like, oh, you're good. We can go to the next level already.
Well, and he was the only person that I'd met that even had heard of it, like because I got like my first attunement when I was in Kentucky right after I finished college. I just looked up on the internet. It definitely wasn't like it is now. So I had to like search for a woman who actually like worked with students and taught Reiki. So I found this woman and happened to go out to her house on some like random November day. And it like happened to be a warm day, which wasn't very I mean, you definitely get warm days in Kentucky, but it's not super characteristic, in November, in the middle of November. And I just remember it was like this 70-degree day and I got my attunement. And so I was so excited about it. And I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, not too long after that. And then it was like a month after I started working at this restaurant, I met Matty, and he was like, I know all about it. In fact, I know people, that do it here. And so it was kind of cool, like, that was kind of like part of the basis of our relationship. But we also had, the restaurant side and the good food and the dining and, the live music type part too. So it was like kind of fun to have like a friend that was into it all.
Yep, I was in the restaurant business for over 20 years.
Really? So
Yes, yes.
All about it.
I know more than I can share, and let me put that.
Yes, you experience a lot when you're in the restaurant business for sure.
Yes, and I used to tell people that wanted to, system managers that wanted to work for me, I would say, okay, how many jobs have you done in the restaurant business? And they say, well, I just got out of school and I was a busboy while I was in school. And I said, that's not enough. And he said, well, how many have you done? And I said, every job that's in a restaurant that you can do, I've done for a living.
Wow.
And they were like, really? And they start going down the list. And it's like a busboy, I used to make tableside Caesar salads for people. And there was a bartender and a doorman and a room service waiter. That has some stories to it, but I'm not going to go there either. In any event, so you guys meet. Oh, before I can go too far, there are people that are going, I don't know what Reiki is. What in the world are you talking about? Reiki stuff. Explain, and this is for either of you, explain what Reiki is and how it's beneficial for people.
This is a good one for you, I feel like.
Reiki's it began by Dr. Usui in Japan in the early 1900s. It's basically an energy transference. Someone who practices Reiki becomes a conduit for universal energy, for God, Goddess, the universe, for source, for spirit, for energy to flow through one, and you lay your hands on somebody and transfer that energy. It's not unlike, say, a mother holding her young child and loving her child and just sharing her motherly, loving energy with a young child, a transference of energy. It's a vibe, it's a feel. Now, by transferring this energy, we can help balance chakras, we can calm a nervous system, work on the emotional body, the spiritual body, the mental body, without any physical interaction, without talking, without body manipulation, and we can move energies out just subtly. But we basically get out of the way. Our mind can help steer the energy a little bit, but it's best when you're out of the way and you just let that person, let their spirit and their body talk to the universal energy, and it will do what it needs to do. It's a spiritual thing, if you will. It's beautiful to be a part of and to understand that you're a conduit. You're not the thing. The best thing you can do is just let the energy come through and get out of the way. And, it keeps the ego out of it. It's just beautiful. I hope I'm doing it justice talking about it.
I would like
you're saying it beautifully. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Emily.
I completely agree. There's just one other aspect that I would like to add, and it's called the attunement process. And so basically when you are working or when you're wanting to work with the Reiki energy, you find a specific, I mean, they call it a Reiki master, which is basically someone who is trained to give attunements. And so basically what these attunements are is that it allows the unconscious mind to recognize these different symbols and opens up your different chakras to allow you to become a conduit for this energy. So it will like help, like the energy comes in like through your crown chakra, goes in through your third eye, down through your throat, down into your heart, and then out through your hands. And so basically what this master does is they teach you how to use these different symbols, or also like I don't want to say implant, but basically opens up your energy system to these symbols, which these symbols help your energy body to recognize that it wants to be this conduit for the energy. From my understanding, we all recognize these symbols. They're all within our conscious and the collective conscious, and it's just a matter of basically being like, hey, I'm going to help you remember these, so that you can be this this channel for this energy.
Well, and the cool thing is about it is it's not about the practitioner. What the practitioner does is sets the scenario up and then gets the hell out of the way and allow the universal energy to come through them without condition and without any of their own thoughts going into it. And it's all about energy transference, just like you said. I equate it to like, do you like music? I know you guys probably love music, but are there ever songs that you play and they energize you and you feel so that is actually the energy from the songwriter and the song coming to you from the universe, and it's giving you that energy. It's the same concept, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a beautiful example for sure. I mean, different songs, help you to feel all kinds of different ways. And so it is that energy transference and that you pick up on.
So you guys have been studying this for a long time, and and tell me our audience real quick, because you're traveling all over the place too. Was that something that when you guys met and said, I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? I know, let's go to Mexico, or let's go to Asia, or let's go. How did all of that come about, and that you had wandering feet?
I would say we've always had wanderlust the whole time we've known each other. And once we started dating, we would plan trips, but these were more vacation style trips. After COVID came and shut down food and beverage in the restaurant business, we didn't wait around to try to get another job. This is when we took what was things we did on the side, like Reiki, studying about the Akashic Records, being into Ro-Hun therapy and Brennan Healing Sciences and past life regressions. And we pivoted to start working in the Akashic Records and to make this our main focus on life as far as our professional career. And we sold our house in August 2021, and we've been open-ended traveling since then. So home for us is where we are together. That is home, whether it's 2 days in an Airbnb or we're 6 months doing a house and sitting in like pet stewardship at the same time somewhere. And we have been in Thailand, Canada, so we've done some international traveling as well, but we've been all over the States.
That is really cool. And the really nice thing is you guys are together 24/7 and you still like each other.
Well, we're pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
We're pretty stoked about that.
I can only imagine, because like I like to say, I was married for 24 years. It was the best 6 months of my life, but that's neither here nor there. But the work that you guys do is just phenomenal. And we've said a bunch of things, and because I want to educate some people so that maybe they can go Google it and find their own things as well. Let's talk about what exactly are the Akashic Records.
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, the Akashic Records are everything is energy. We have a physical body, but we also have an energetic body, and this earth is like this. The universe is like this. So energy is pervasive everywhere. The Akashic Records are the old Sanskrit term for Akasha, meant sky, ether, space. So you can think of the Akashic field as the space in between everything and like physical reality. Like it's the space in between our cells. It's the space in between our synapses. It's the space between Emily and me right now. It's the space between us and you in Seattle from Colorado. It is space. It is everywhere. So this energy, this space is source's creation. It's source energy. This is how, when people talk about God or God, Goddess, the universe being omniscient and knowing everything, it's because space is everywhere. Space is pervasive throughout the universe, throughout all the galaxies, throughout our bodies and the earth and all the planets and stars and everything. So it is God, Goddess, the universe's energy. It's a written record, an energetic record. I like to think of it as like a supercomputer or a spiritual Google. A lot of people talk about the Akashic Records as being a hall of records or a grand library where every soul that's ever existed in this universe has a book, and you can go to the shelf and open up Matty Hollingsworth's soul book and look at the totality of what my soul has done, not just me as Matty Hollingsworth, but every human incarnation or the lives I've lived in other star systems and other planets, all that I've done, all that I do when I'm not here in a physical body, when I'm in a light body in between human lifetimes. There's a record of these things, and it's made available to us so we can tap in and get to know ourselves better. Life is about growth. It's about becoming more well-rounded, a more wholesome person in our earthly experience. Well, the same thing is happening on a soul level. And so everything we've done is in this Akashic record, and we all have one.
And we're going to talk in the second half of the show. We're going to talk about your work with past life regressions and with the Newton Institute and with the work that you've done with Life Between Lives. Because, and one of the things I wanted to mention is that you've heard of NDEs, and everybody, not everybody, but they're on the internet and stuff, and people that say, I was in the hospital and I just died. I died, and then I was outside my body, and then I went through this tunnel, and then I went to the other side, and then I saw my life experience, and my life experience was both good and bad. That is what we're going to talk about. But there's a component that these people miss, because at one point in time on every NDE, which is near-death experience, there's the entity that says, oh no, you're not done. You got to go back. And so when you got to go back, you don't get the full experience of what happens next. And we're going to talk about what happens next in the work that Dr. Michael Newton has done. And you guys have become experts in it. And so you've been through it yourselves and stuff. What is that experience like? Because I understand it can take it's a 4 to 6 hour hypnosis session. Really, has that been your experience?
Yeah, I would say it was about the past life regression, my past life regression was about 3 hours, and then the Life Between Life session was, I would say, between 3 and 4. So I mean, it was definitely a lengthy session for sure.
Now, do you remember the past life, and who were you? And don't tell me you were Cleopatra.
At this point, I've had quite a few past life regressions. The first one that I did in this method with our mentor, he was trained by the Newton Institute, so he was definitely trained in that method. I was a young girl from Morocco. I was about 18 years old, and when I came into the past life, I was in a cave, and I was very stressed because I didn't know what was going on essentially. And so our So the practitioner, his name was Scott, he like led me through a series of questions, and I was just like, nothing's coming to me. And I was like kind of getting a little stressed. And then he said, well, is anyone else with you? And I said, that's like when it all hit me. It was like all of the memories came flooding into me. And I was like, I'm all alone. I'm all alone. And I like started like, I went from like this to just like crying, like as hard as I could possibly be crying, because I had realized that apparently I'd been like down by the water, you know, on my own. And when I went back to the camp where my family was, they had all been taken, like they had all disappeared. So it was like, this was the first realization for me in that lifetime that I was basically all alone, and my family had completely disappeared, and I had no clue what had happened. Like, so I was completely confused. I was, you know, completely stressed and alone, and I just didn't know what to think. And so basically throughout this lifetime, I spent like the majority of my lifetime like trying to figure out what happened to them, even though I never saw them again. And that really resonates with this lifetime, because there's definitely a lot of things, like I'm very drawn towards wanting to know the truth. But this lifetime, like basically the biggest moral of this lifetime for me was to learn that not all truths were for me to know. And so basically it was like I basically wasted this entire lifetime from the age of 18 till, you know, I think I was like in my 70s when I died in that lifetime, like basically stressed out and trying to figure out what had happened to my family, instead of just like trying to let go and move on and like live my life.
Yeah, but you were 18 and all by yourself, and everybody just disappeared.
Yeah,
Right?
it was really wild. And I spent 26 years of that lifetime like alone. Like basically I like snuck from like camp to camp, like basically just getting supplies that I needed. And I had like visions of like laying in fields just all by myself, waiting till the dark to like go get my next like ration or whatever.
Now, do you remember how what the surroundings were like, and like a time frame of how long ago this was?
Now. I feel like if I listen to the recording, I would have the time frame, but I don't remember. I can't remember at this time.
You know, it's amazing.
I remember Emily telling me about it was the 15th century. It was in the 1400s when this took place for her. And I was there when she first came out of her session. And, you know, just like she was there for me, and we actually recorded ourselves some. And she was still like visibly upset and tears because of the experience, how real it felt, and the worry and trying to figure out what happened to her family was still like visible in this lifetime. But she talked about some of the kind of deserty landscape, and some of the kind of trees were around, like palmish trees and stuff, and some of the rations, you know, like she would go in and get after, and dates were involved at one point there, you know, that she liked that fruit and stuff. But and one of the neat things about past life regression is there's usually something almost always tied to our life now, that we're remembering something that we didn't finish, a life lesson that needs to be completed, and we can see where other pieces are. So something that never happened in this life has never come up, but it's in the back of your head, or it's a feeling, and then it makes sense. Oh, well, now I can maybe not make that such a big deal anymore, because now I understand where that energy began. It wasn't this life. I'm not searching for something in this life. That comes from a past life. And like Emily said, she very much is driven by diving into the nitty-gritty and figuring out the truth of things, and helping others do this as well. That's where this was born for her. Yeah, was this need to find the truth, but also understanding that not all truth is for us to have. Sometimes it's subjective. Sometimes we can have the same experience and have different truths coming out of it. You know, so she really like took her desires for that to another level of understanding.
Yeah.
as well.
And it did help like heal an aspect that I was working through at that moment in time. Like I definitely was stressing over learning the truth about a certain situation when it's someone else's truth. And that's not really, I had to learn that that's not really for me to know. Like I can't always know someone else's truth.
And by the way, you never will. And
Yeah.
that's one of the challenges. By the way, you know how I know when I'm having a good episode?
How's that?
When I blow right through the break, which I did. And so now we're going to catch up, and I'm going to play the break that I was supposed to play 15 minutes ago because we were having such a good discussion. And then when we come back from this, we are going to be talking in depth about life between lives and how it all works. And that I know people that have actually, now Dr. Michael Newton has passed, and he's on the other side, he's home. But I know people that have had a conversation with him on the other side. And we're going to talk about all that when we come back. You're listening to Positive Talk. Go to their website, which is soulvibeinsights.com. They have a podcast. They're podcasters as well. And there's drops. I think that's how you say it. There's drops every Wednesday. And they've got a bunch of stuff. And they talk about a lot of these things in depth. They're very, very talented at what they do. And we will be right back after this because I've blown another break. And by the way, if you're a real estate guy, you need to listen to this.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We've got a great show for you today because they're great people on the show. And that's amazing how that works, isn't it? Matty and Emily are with us, and they are versed in past life regression, life between lives. You know, I had never heard of the term life between lives, but I have to tell you a quick story. When I was at Thanksgiving dinner with my family, fundamentalist Christian family, and we were talking about what happens when we die. And my mother said, well, you get to have your body back, and it's going to be a perfect body, and you're going to get to eat anything you want to, and you're never going to gain a pound. And I said, does that mean you don't have to go poop either? And she didn't have an answer for that. But I got to thinking about that. And then she said, we are going to sit on a cloud, and we're going to sit at Jesus' feet, and we are going to worship, and we are going to sit there. And I said, that's it? That's all we get to do? There's got to be more than that. And so that's when I started going down the path of trying to understand, since we are, if you accept the fact that we are energetic beings in a physical body, and that we have an energetic soul, which, by the way, a lot of organized religions do not have a satisfactory answer of what the soul is. If you look at it, but if your soul is your primary driver and not your body, then what happens to it? It's energy, so it doesn't die. Where does it go? What does it do? Who does it be? How does it have fun? What kind of things does it do? Who does it know? All of those kind of things. And so I went on search of that, as I suspect you guys did too. Is that kind of right?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Unsatisfactory answers. I had as a teenager, growing up in Southern Methodist churches, and
Oh, I was Lutheran. I know exactly what you're talking about.
just answers that didn't fit right with me, as well as your soul comes here. You're in your mother's womb, and you may not make it out of the womb, or you might live 120 years. But depending on what happens this one time, you're going to spend eternity. The rest of infinity in a heaven or a hell just never, ever sat right with me from a loving creator God. That was one of the first things that just made me go, this doesn't feel right. I know I'm supposed to fall in line and believe this, but I just can't. It just doesn't feel right to me.
I had a gentleman that I said, when I was growing up, I was Lutheran, and they said that if you get taught the gospel and you reject it, you're going to hell. And I said, what about the people who don't get a chance to know anything about the gospel? What about the people that have been, in Africa or wherever they are? And they said, well, that's too bad for them. It's like, no, God loves us all. Why would he do such a thing? And stuff. So that's why I went on that journey, because what I've learned since and what you guys are very versed in makes us so much more sense to me.
Yeah, I was raised Southern Baptist.
Oh God.
So I definitely, I don't know. It was like I would be sitting in church and it was just kind of like I had like this whole body kind of reaction to the things that were being said, just kind of like very skeptical about, what's being said. Is this really the right way? And all of those types of things. And, I've always been like a very avid learner. I love to learn. And in college, I took an Asian philosophy class. And so learning about all the different Asian philosophies, it was almost like, and that paired up with learning Reiki, it was kind of like, oh, this makes more sense to me. Like, it was just more of like this whole body, like acceptance of getting closer to the truth, if you will, or to the truth for me, at least.
At least a better understanding of more options that are out there. I didn't like the just a few options. And by the way, you studied what again?
That wasn't my major, but I did take an Asian philosophy in class in college.
When you were looking at the catalog going, hey, there's Asian philosophy, I think I'll take that one. Really?
Yep. Yeah, it was a junior level class. It was the only philosophy class that I took in college at all. And, of course, all my friends and people in college with me were like, you're crazy. You can't take a junior level, philosophy class. But I don't know. Like I said, it just kind of all made sense. And I just kind of had like these fundamental understandings of different things that were taught in it. And it just made a lot of sense to me.
Before we talk about life between lives, I wanted to ask you guys, does it feel like everything that is happening in your life has gone from one thing to the next, and it all just kind of lines up for you?
When I look back, it lines up. Maybe while it's happening, it may not feel that way always, though.
And I will say that
go ahead.
Something we've come to understand and believe in, and this helped me in my personal life. I had some childhood traumas and things, and I was a victim and I was a survivor, and I very much thought life happened to me, and I'm just doing my best to react and keep my head above water and just do my best. And what I've really come to understand is life happened for me, for us. And especially like Emily said, when you use hindsight and look back, you can see that things happened and there were opportunities for growth and for changing one's perspective and evolving who we are as a human and who we are as a soul it makes sense looking behind, looking at the past and going, yes, I see how these things lined up. But sometimes, you know, when we're in the middle of it and you're still, I mean, even with our beliefs now, it doesn't always make sense. But we have faith and trust that whatever we're going through and what the universe is bringing to us and the choices we're making are for our benefit, are for our growth. And I don't mean growth as evolution, like we're climbing a ladder and each rung I get up, I'm higher and higher and I'm more evolved. I mean growth as in movement, as in make a choice and do it. And then find out, was it right? Does it feel good? Are you still into this? If not, pivot and do something else. If it is, then pat yourself on the back because you made a great choice. You know, past Matty took care of business and present Matty's loving life. But we always have a choice in the present to switch, to change, to keep doing what we're doing. And I've been stubborn and I've doubled down and plodded through and then had to finally realize, oh my gosh, I wish I would have made the change a few changes ago, but I didn't. So it just live life, grow from it. You know, don't try to beat yourself up for choices in the past. You know, let those things go. Understand that life really is happening for us, and we have the ability to choose, to grow, to change, to evolve, to switch our perspectives and perceptions up. And that's part of the beauty of being here and why souls come here for this human experience, to learn. It is so vast and crazy what we can go through it in our human body. It is unique throughout the universe. Earth is, and Earth is a school.
So I got to ask you guys, because there are lots of people that will just tell you that they're apprehensive about the future because, oh God, what's going to happen now? How's it going to unfold? And who's going to hurt me now? Or who's going to do this? But if you have a certain perspective, isn't life the most grand adventure you can think of?
Yes. Although I do struggle with, you know, having anticipating the future, what's going to happen. It's definitely been a big learning process for me to really try to settle into the now and really try to be here now and be okay with the now and not try to strive for something else while I'm in the now.
Well, I'm going to share something with you that I think is really, really important because I shared it with Rochelle. It seems to have helped her. Are you familiar with the gospel according to Paul McCartney?
I feel like I
Let it
should
be.
say no. Let it be.
Matty, hold on. That has become the cornerstone of my life. Just let it be. Trust that everything's going to work out for the best, even if it means that this physical body is going to end, and stuff. And just let it be. Enjoy yourself. That's why we're here. Isn't that a primary reason that we came here? Is yes, it's a school and we came here to learn, but I like recess. So we get to have recess as well.
Yes, for sure. I definitely think that learning to enjoy life and all of its wonders is definitely a huge reason why we're here.
And it makes it for a lot of it's a lot of fun for us. So let's talk. Let me do this. I'm going to try not to miss this one because my producer gets so mad. Let me do this real quick, and we will be right back. We are talking with Matty and Emily, and go to their website, which is soulvibeinsights.com. Learn about your Akashic Records, your soul intuition education. We need to talk about that at one point. It's going to be on another show, I'm afraid, and all of that because they're just phenomenal human beings, and I just love them to death, and you can too. So we're going to be right back after this, and then we're going to talk more about Michael Newton's work and Life Between Lives and what you do there, and I know. Let's talk about the council. I'm sure it's full of judgment and them telling you were awful and stuff. And they're gonna put you in jail and they're gonna do all sorts of. That's the council we're gonna talk about. We'll see if that's true when we come back.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
Wait for it. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and Matty and Emily are here, and they go to their website again, which is soulvibeinsights.com, and you can find out all about them. And they have a podcast. If this kind of material interests you, as it should, because it's very true. Listen to Soul Vibe Insights podcast, and you can pick that, as they say, at all the places where you get podcasts, right?
Yeah, we're in all the directories, and you can check our podcasts out. We have players on our website as well, but you can find us in the Apples and Spotify's and Podbeans and all over.
We need to add you to our website as well, so that people can go there and find you as well. Because this, and I don't know how you two feel about it. I suspect kind of the same, but this information is so life-changing. It can change the entire planet and everybody who's in it if we understand why we're really here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely. To not only relieve the pressure that we put on ourselves for this life to be perfect, to understand that you're going to come do this a couple hundred times, bare minimum, maybe more.
Yeah.
I mean, we do a soul journey Akashic Record readings and chronicleize like the important points for a soul, like where they're incarnated at first in the universe. Are they an earth soul, or are they a star seed or star traveler? What they do in a light body, what past lives are like, what life lessons have you chose right now, which are the themes. Like, they're literally, your life lessons are the unavoidable speed bumps in the road of life. You have to go over them. You naturally just attract these things in your life to grow from. Like, so we chronicle a bunch of this stuff, and to know this, you can put on different lenses and actually start to understand what's going to come your way. And you may not know literally the physicality of how it's going to show up, but you're going to know the energy, and you're going to start to feel it. And then you're going to say, oh, this person, like, this might have not been the greatest experience, but I understand they're helping me learn my life lesson. It takes a little of the piss and vinegar out of the anger, if you will. It can. The light and the low, that, like, literally even the people that we may look at and think they did me wrong, well, they were there for a reason. They were put there to facilitate an energy for the potential to grow, to shift a perspective, to learn a way that, oh, I didn't like that. I don't want to treat somebody like that. Oh, I have done that in the past. Maybe I'm going to change who I am because of the experiences I'm having. It's about that experiential knowledge, learning from what you're going through. And I think to have this kind of information, to understand life between lives, that it's not one and done. It's one and one and one. And then maybe you go somewhere else in the universe for a while and then come back for another series of lifetimes. It is a challenge to be here. Like, this is the beauty. And like I said, it really can help us understand that we're all in it together. We're all players on a world stage, interacting with each other for the benefit of 8 billion people growing and changing and learning. If they want to, you can also choose to just say, screw it, I don't believe in this. And you'll figure it out when you go back, and you'll come formulate a new plan and try again.
You guys make me giggle because I made myself giggle because my mom passed away 3 years ago. She was a fundamentalist Christian. She had certain beliefs about the other side, and I've talked to psychic mediums since then. And one of them said, "You know, your mom's asking a question. Why are there so many people here?" And she looked at my dad, who was a retired Catholic, and she said, "What is he doing here?" Because it didn't fit with her belief structure originally,
Right.
Right.
going in and stuff. But that is so true. And by the way, if you are a man, you get to come back at one point, and you get to be a woman, and then you get to go through pregnancy and childbirth. And I don't want to do that. I've seen that. That's not good.
Yeah, I
So
mean, in our readings, we found that most souls have kind of done like equally, but between being a man and a woman, about 50% of each. We've read for some souls that have had like 70 one way and 30 the other, and oftentimes when souls have played out a certain gender for the majority of their incarnations and not as much the other gender, then they may still identify with that gender even if they incarnate as the opposite in a certain life.
now I promise that we get into the council, but there's so many things. Every time you say something, I have 10 questions that pop into my head.
Well, we could talk about the council. I did want to say, like earlier, you were talking about near-death experiences. While I feel fortunate to have never experienced that. When you do a past life regression or a life between lifetimes session, when you go through the death scene, you do kind of raise out of your body, and you are viewing your body in that lifetime from above it. And so you are able to view like who was in the room with you. You can view how people are reacting to your death. You can look at your body and see what it looks like when your soul is not in it in that lifetime. It is very vivid and very interesting. And then, were you going to say that?
Well, I was just going to amplify that because they don't do it anymore like they once did. When I was a kid, they did at a funeral, there was something called an open casket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where they would have the mortician or the funeral director would dress the body, and they would be in the casket and stuff. Nobody that I knew that I saw in death in a casket looked even remotely like they did in life.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
I have the same experience for sure.
And that's that quintessential soul energy's gone. That's what brings life. That is that connection, to as above, so below. That soul energy connects us to the eternal. And you've essentially unplugged that. It is just kind of the meat suit laying there now at this point.
Yeah.
It is just a body. It's not animated anymore.
No, and especially facial expressions.
Yeah.
Facial expressions and the energy that people have. One of my grandparents, that he liked to purse his lips a lot. For the life of them, they could not make his lips do that. They showed him pictures, and they just we can't do that. I'm sorry, because his soul, that was his energy that was surrounding him, and it was his soul. And you take that away, and none of that's there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How people smile with their eyes and not just their face, like that. That's an energetic thing. That's the soul shining through. I mean, the eyes are the windows to the soul. And those are gone and usually closed.
Exactly. So explain to us, because one of the things that a lot of structured religions will talk about is it's Judgment Day, and you're going to be judged when you get there. And if you don't do exactly the right thing, then you're going to go to hell or go to heaven. Well, in Life Between Lives, they talk about the council, and that there is a council that you go stand in front of. Tell us the difference.
Well, I mean, we are strong believers that judgment is just a human construct. That is not something that we've experienced in any of our sessions. Even with clients and their experiences, like there has never been any sort of judgment or any sort of, anything that says that there is a right or a wrong way to live life. And as far as the council goes, I mean, we've had some pretty cool experiences with the council. As you basically just kind of, like, one of my experiences, I got actually commended by all my council, telling me that, you're doing a really good job. You may not feel like you are, but you're really making a lot of strides in this life, and you're doing a really good job. And I left feeling very, very good about myself. I felt really great. Yeah, and I know Matty did you have a similar experience too?
I had a similar energetic experience, but a vastly different. Like, we're talking about the Council of Elders, that Newton coined this because this is what his clients were saying over and over and over again. I got to go to the Council of Elders, the Council of Elders. And the vast majority of people will see the Council of Elders as a bunch of old men in robes and stuff. That's kind of we spend so much time on earth, and it's been a patriarchy for so long that's the vision, but it's not the right vision. There is no right vision. There is just what you experience. So not everyone, like, we didn't experience a council of old dudes, a council of elders. My council was actually
I wasn't there.
Mine was like going to Sedona and a huge rock face, probably 25 feet wide, 15, 20 feet tall, but it looked like an amethyst. This is me just sitting in front of this big gemstone. And the council would basically talk, but I didn't hear words. It was just, I knew it. I could feel it. It was an intuitive thing. And this light would just go off in this one area. It'd just be like, and I'd be like, yeah, I know. I don't think I, did that part really well, but, for the most part, I thought I did well, kind of learning my lessons. And then there'd be this other little light over here, and I just kind of look at it and be like, yeah. So there was no human form at all for me. This is how my Council of Elders appeared. It was just a big gemstone, and we just telepathically communicated. But it's a place to go to. Everyone has their own spirit guide that's been with them since their inception point, since they were born as a soul. And this spirit guide is with you through all of your entire life, if you will, but especially when you start incarnating and you're coming back and you're building karma and you're learning lessons and growing as a soul, and they're there to guide you, and they've been with you the whole time. So they can speak, just like if you're 50 years old and you still have your parents, they remember what you were like as in diapers. They remember the terrible twos and the bratty teenager and the being so proud of their young, son or daughter, going off into higher education and becoming a man or a woman and, whatever, but they have the breadth of your whole life as a human. But we have a spirit guide that has that for our souls. And they're there with you, and the counselor kind of helps all these spirit guides. But we get to go meet with them as well. And there's no judgment. They're just checking in and just maybe pointing something out like, hey, the plan was for you to do X, Y, Z. But when it came up, you ran backwards 20 feet and jumped into the ocean, and here you are now. You were supposed to get into the ship. That's why it was there. It was to take you and save you, but you just did it the opposite. So let's try next time to go with the plan. Let's try to remember the plan. They're just there in that regard, just as a counsel. There's no judgment. Like Emily said, judgment's a human construct. We judge ourselves. Sometimes a soul will feel maybe really bad about decisions they made or things they did in their human life. And we might take a time out and kind of go park it and really kind of sit with it and what we did and how we could have made different choices and how that energy played out and what we could have done differently. And then when we're ready, we formulate another plan and we come back. Do it
And
again.
there is no time. So it could be a year in our world. It could be a year, 100 years, 1,000 years. And Dr. Marnie says, what about very bad people who do very bad things? Well, that's the body. And there's a lot of in my opinion, that's the body. And there's a lot of issues that go along with that as far as ego, mental illness, and all that kind of stuff. That has no relationship to your eternal soul. Your eternal soul is perfect and beautiful and part of the collective in every way, and it's part of the energy of the universe. Did I say that relatively okay?
I absolutely agree. Sometimes we come in and things don't work right. The brain wiring is off from what we thought it would be, and then our life is a whole different path than, you know, the potential probabilities as a soul that we planned for before we came. Sometimes we actually come with a soul contract to do horrible things, to learn through what we would call victim perpetrator lifetimes, to be the victim and be the perpetrator and find where your soul fits in between. Where's your balance point here? You know, so sometimes we do this on purpose, and others have us come into a life to do these bad things or to do these good things or to receive them. But it has no bearing on your eternal soul being a good soul or a bad soul. There's just is.
And guys, Matty and Emily, I am so sorry, but I run out of time. I'm overtime again, and I'm going to get yelled at again, but that's okay. And go to their website, which is soulvibeinsights.com. You can reach out to them. They can do Akashic readings for you, or a records reading, and they're going to have to do one for me because I got a whole team of guys up there, and that are trying to make sure that this all works, and I stay and on behalf of the show. So thank you both for being here. I have really appreciated it. And have you had a good time?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
It's been very fun.
Yeah, it was our pleasure.
So we don't suck, and so you're going to come back?
Yeah,
I
let's
would
do
like
it.
to, yeah, for sure.
There's
Very
so much
cool.
more we can talk about.
Mhm.
Oh, we haven't even touched the
Yeah,
surface.
we barely opened the door. Yeah.
So thank you to you two for being here, and thanks everybody for listening, and I hope we've given you something positive to think about. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin at KM Media.